You know, for decades, when a giant ship reaches the end of its life, it marks the start of one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. But that's all about to change. There's a major international agreement, years and years in the making, that's ready to bring brand new safety and environmental standards to the global ship recycling industry. So today, we're talking about the Hong Kong Convention. Just take a look at this. This is the reality of shipbreaking in so many parts of the world. These massive vessels are literally beached and then just taken apart by hand, often with little to no protection for the workers or for the environment around them. It's a process that's just filled with risks, everything from hazardous materials to sheer physical danger. This right here is the exact problem the Hong Kong Convention was created to solve. And it all boils down to this one crucial question. What really happens when a ship's journey ends? I mean, for these enormous container ships, tankers, and cruise liners, it's not a simple retirement. It's an incredibly complex process of deconstruction that, up until now, has been pretty much unregulated on a global scale. And that dangerous end comes with these massive hidden costs. You've got workers being exposed to asbestos, heavy metals, all sorts of toxic stuff. At the same time, coastal ecosystems can be devastated by oil spills and hazardous waste. The fact that there were no global standards has basically allowed these practices to just go on for way, way too long. But now a new global standard is finally here to change all that. It's called the Hong Kong International Convention for the Safe and Environmentally Sound Recycling of Ships. Or, let's be honest, we're just going to call it the HKC. This is the very first international treaty that's designed to tackle this issue head-on. And when you look at this timeline, you really get a sense of just how long this journey has been. The convention was first adopted by the International Maritime Organization way, way back in 2009, but it took until June of 2023 for enough countries to finally sign on and ratify it. And it will officially go into force on June 26, 2025, finally bringing these rules to life after more than 15 years. The whole philosophy behind the HKC is what's known as a cradle-to-grave approach. What that means is we start thinking about a ship's disposal right from the moment it's being designed and built. The goal is to manage and control any hazardous materials throughout the ship's entire life, not just scramble to deal with them when it's time to scrap it. So who does this actually apply to? Well, the convention is really targeting the bigger vessels, the ones involved in international trade. Specifically, ships that are 500 gross tonnage, or GT, or more. That number you see, 500 GT, that's the key threshold. And that covers the vast majority of the world's commercial fleet, everything from cargo ships to cruise liners. All right, so the key to making all of this work is a concept you can think of as a ship's materials passport. The official name is the Inventory of Hazardous Materials, or IHM. And trust me, this IHM is the absolute central pillar of the entire convention. Now, what's really crucial to understand here is that the IHM isn't some report you file once and forget about. No, it's a live, constantly updated document that is unique to each individual ship. It details exactly what hazardous materials are on board, precisely where they are, and exactly how much there is. This gives recycling yards the critical information they need to dismantle the ships safely. So this IHM is actually broken down into 3 parts. Part I is the big one during the ship's active service. It covers all the hazardous stuff inside the ship's structure and equipment, and this part has to be kept up to date throughout the ship's entire life. Then you have parts 2 and 3. These are only developed at the very end of the ship's life. They detail things like operational wastes and any stores left on board, and you need them to get that final ready for recycling certificate. Now, for those of you in the industry, you might be thinking, hey, this sounds a lot like the green passport. And you're not wrong. That was an earlier voluntary idea. The IHM is basically its mandatory, legally binding evolution. It's way more comprehensive, it's regulated, and it has to be maintained for the ship's entire life. It's a major, major step up. Okay, so let's get practical. Who is responsible for what? The great thing about the convention is that it doesn't just dump all the responsibility on ship owners. It creates a real two-way system of accountability. And this visual shows that shared responsibility perfectly. On one side, you have the ships. They have to maintain their IHM and get all the right certifications. But on the other side, the recycling facilities have to be authorized, proving they can operate safely and without harming the environment. Under these new rules, one simply cannot exist without the other. So, the path to recycling is now a clear, regulated process. First, a ship owner has to tell their flag state, that's the country where the ship is registered, that they intend to recycle. Then they finalize the full IHM, go through a final survey, and get that International Ready for Recycling certificate. Only with that certificate in hand can they legally send the vessel to a specially authorized recycling facility. Now, as you can imagine, with any major international law, it's not all smooth sailing. There are some pretty complex legal issues to navigate, especially where the Hong Kong Convention bumps up against other existing regulations. And here is the main point of friction. The Hong Kong Convention considers the vessel a ship for recycling. Simple enough, right? Well, another major treaty, the Basel Convention, classifies an end-of-life ship as hazardous waste. This difference in how they define the exact same thing creates potential legal headaches over how ships can be moved across borders for recycling. The conversation is ongoing, but for now, it's a bit of an uncertain area. And the complexity doesn't just stop with the Basel Convention. The European Union, for example, already has its own ship recycling regulation, the EU SRR. This means ship owners that operate globally have to navigate all these different, sometimes overlapping, layers of rules to make sure they're staying compliant everywhere they go. But look, despite these complexities, the Hong Kong Convention is a truly pivotal moment. It promises a future where the end of a ship's journey doesn't have to come at the cost of human lives or environmental health. It's really about creating a much, much safer horizon for the entire industry. And this quote from the International Maritime Organization it gets to the very heart of it. The ultimate goal is so simple, but so profound. To make sure that ship recycling no longer poses an unnecessary risk to people or to our planet. So that leaves us with the big question, doesn't it? After a 16-year journey from when it was first adopted to when it's finally enforced, will the Hong Kong Convention actually transform one of the world's most dangerous jobs into a safe and sustainable industry? Well, the framework is now in place, and the whole world is going to be watching to see if it delivers.